right. Hi guys, hi everybody. Am I in the right space? Hi everybody, am I in the right space? I'm keep getting to I just want to know if I'm in the right space.
Yes, Dr. Niles, you're in the right stream. You are.
Okay. This is silence part of the afternoon. Hi guys. Good to see your names actually, not just English. Thank God I could spell.
Good evening to our board and executive board members, our specially invited guests and panelists, and to the ladies and gentlemen of our viewing audience. Welcome to another episode of Spotlight Endometriosis, a free monthly talk series put on by the TTEA to intimately address issues related to endometriosis. This year, we are focusing on endometriosis and mental health. And this evening, we are delving into the male perspective and how this impacts the experience and the everyday life of an endo patient. Some may ask, what does the male perspective do for me? How could they ever understand? Or men don't get endometriosis. But James Brown has a song which goes, this is a man's world, but it would be nothing without a woman or a girl. For me, the reciprocity that is ingrained in those two lines cannot be denied. A man's world will be nothing without a woman or a girl, in the same way that a woman's world will be nothing without a man or a boy, if it's only for the simple reason that neither could come into being without the help of the other. In addition, we have the life experiences of fathers, brothers, boyfriends, husbands, and sons. And even though society teaches them to mask their emotions, lest they want to be classified as feminine, allowing them to share thoughts and emotions many times soothes the pain at various levels. I, for one, have always been intrigued by the male perspective because in my experience, the males in my life have always simplified for me anything that remotely looks like a conundrum. So from a very young age, I have come to value and respect the male insight while still engaging in self-sufficiency. This evening, the TTEA brings to you three gentlemen who are willing to share the male side of things with us. Dr. Kenneth Niles, who is no stranger to Spotlight Endometriosis. Good night, Dr. Niles. Dr. Niles is the Chief Executive Officer and President. Hi. He is the Chief Executive Officer and President of the Emmanuel Ministries International and his Global Concepts, a consultancy company. He's a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago, a coach in foundational and advanced mediation training, conflict and management, crisis intervention, and trauma. He's a counseling psychologist and family therapist, an adjunct lecturer. He authored books addressing male issues with a focus on the restoration of the male man called Man to Man. He's the founder of the publishing company called His Publications. And tonight, Dr. Niles would be bringing to us the expertise. Dr. Niles is senior laughing there. We also have with us Mr. Jason Leach. So Mr. Leach is a PhD candidate at the University of Ottawa studying artificial intelligence and decision-making. He's a part-time lecturer at the university in organizational communication. And I want to put in a plug here because Mr. Leach was also my tutor at University of the West Indies in Communication Studies, Abisha and I. Hi, Mr. Leach. Nice to see you. The last time I saw Mr. Leach, he was a Rasta man. Tonight, I'm seeing the Rasta has gone. Good night, sir.
Good night, guys.
Yes, and he serves on the University Steering Committee for Anti-Racism. He's a senior mentorship coordinator for Caribbean Students Association, He's the host of the podcast, The Exchange. And The Exchange covers a wide range of topics with special emphasis on men, their stories, their challenges, and the way in which they make sense of the world. And we also have Mr. Kendell John, also known as, before I say that, I'm sorry, Mr. Leach, Dr. Leach, Lord, I've given you a PhD before Mr. Leach. He said, cool. Mr. Leach will be bringing to us tonight the perspective. So Dr. Niles is the expertise. Mr. Leach is the perspective. And we also have Mr. Kendell John, also known as DJ Swanky Lucky in the entertainment industry. So Mr. John has 15 years experience in entertainment. He is a DJ and host on several local radio stations. He's passionate about entertainment and his family. And he has expressed that he has had a roller coaster endometriosis experience with his girlfriend. And Mr. John would be bringing to us tonight the experience of being with someone with endometriosis. So gentlemen, good evening and welcome. It's our pleasure to have you with us. I am your host, Karen Hinkson-David, Public Relations Director of the TTEA, and I am joined this evening by our newly appointed president, Ms. Ambah Grant, who would be our moderator for the question and answer segment. Ambah, can you put your camera on and say good night, our new president?
Good evening. Thank you, Christine, for that. It's really on the spot there. Good night, Dr. Niles, soon to be Dr. Leach.
Yes.
Thank you for agreeing to bring the male perspective to what is endometriosis. We look forward to a lively discussion with you gentlemen this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. So we want to go right into, because I'm seeing it's already 7:08. I wanted to start with Mr. John. I don't know if he's in the audience with us. If he's here, is he here?
We understand he's having some technical difficulties, so he's trying to log on.
Okay. All right. So let's start with Dr. Niles and Mr. Leach. So, Mr. Leach, let's zero in on you. Yes.
Jason is fine, eh?
Jason is fine.
Yes.
All right, Jason.
Yes.
Thank you for that. All right, so let's.
I'm actually still on campus, so.
Oh, you're still okay. All right, nice. All right, so let's zero in on what is to happen tonight. The male perspective. We are actually looking at mental health, the male perspective, and endometriosis. It was my intention to start with Mr. John, so that this is supposed to be a melding of ideas where you all are supposed to converse with each other. But I'm going to ask you, Jason, to start off here with explaining to us the work you do with regards to the male, the perspective, how they think, and if there's any way that you can bring that down to mental health for us, how men view these issues and so on, because we know, as I was saying in my opening remarks, that society tells men that they should mask their feelings. Yeah? So give us some insight into the work you have been doing and how that could be relevant to us tonight.
All right, no problem. And so thanks again, Karen, and good night to Dr. Niles. And let me just say thanks to Abisha again for the invitation. All right, so let me start in a broad kind of way. So as we establish, I'm a PhD candidate, and in the grand scheme of things, that means nothing. It just means that I ask a lot of questions, right? I ask a lot of questions and I try to get to the bottom, or at least to find some kind of resolution to the questions that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to merge that with what it is I've been doing recently, especially in light of my podcast. And it really came out of, some personal experiences and seeing how the opinions and views of men are often silenced. And so it's not intentionally so all the time. But we have a society, at least in Trinidad, where there's a lot of don't around men. Don't talk too loud, don't do this, don't do that, don't do the next. So it becomes very ingrained. And sometimes when you ask men to talk, they are unable to express all of what they are feeling, because a lot of what they have been, the space in which they've been socialized has been a space that doesn't allow for them to speak.
Yes.
But you said something earlier on, that when you do listen to men, it's very interesting and it helps you unravel a lot of things. So I have this platform, and this platform pretty much is a space where men unravel things. And we've been dealing with, I don't even want to say we've been dealing with, we've been dealing with life. We've been dealing with men who have how they deal with miscarriages. We've had people dealing with how they deal with renal failure. Men and how they deal with having special needs children. And so I feel like all of that now is very pertinent to what it is we're talking about tonight. Because in as much as the experience is felt physically by the woman, that experience doesn't happen in a silo. And so once she has a partner, he too now has things that he needs to do to be able to balance that out. And just in preparation for this discussion, I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues, and she was talking about her mother having endometriosis. And she said, one of the things is that her mother couldn't move for like a week. You know what I mean? There was like a week every month that she couldn't move. So even when it is we talk about that, it meant that somebody had to support her during that week that she couldn't move. And then when she had to move in terms of being able to get to the doctor, then somebody else had to, come in and support her that way. So that is how I see men being involved in this process. I mean, part of it, of course, it goes beyond. One of the things that I did raise in my discussions initially is that, I would want to know how men navigate even things like intimacy and, that kind of thing in light of your partner having to deal with endometriosis. So that is my opening salvo. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Niles, would you like to fill in any gaps or so with what Jason would have just spoken about?
Yeah, I can. One of the things I heard you mention, the word mental health, of course, that's my intrigue. But I think it's a little more than that. It's basically a psychosocial issue, more social psycho than it is psychosocial, because we have been so cultured from childhood, hearing from our parents, one of these days I'll have grandchildren, one of these days I'll have grandchildren. And when we do establish ourselves with mates, whether it's cohabiting or married, you hear the first thing, especially at the wedding ceremony, reception, well, I'm going to get a grandchild. Oh, So there's that culture that encourages us to want to have a baby, to want to have. Outside of that, the prowess of men, living on the block, who is the man, who is the big goat here? And we have this thing about spreading our royal seeds. And so therefore, I have a child here. You feel good about yourself, you have a child. So you could bring forth. And so therefore, there's that other psyche within the male world that, yes, I can bring forth. So that on one hand, you have the traditional issues of the family life cycle, moving from family of origin to yours and developing a society. The other one is for you as an individual, establishing your masculinity because you are sexual and you are able to impregnate. So that when you are in a relationship where now you are forced to reckon that there's something called difference, it is not happening. There's a lot of pressure, more so from the outside than it is from the inside. So I could feel, yes. So even if I would like to work this, there is that S word that hits me in my head, secret. Oh, with secrecy. How do I tell people that she cannot bring forth? How do I tell people I am not yet a father? How do I tell people that I have to work through a particular illness that denies me of maybe romance, sexual excitement? How do I work that? And so therefore, there is a lot of pressure that comes to the man. And of course, for you to share that now with your family, even sometimes they'll say, hey, what's going on? Because a guy doesn't want to go through the courtship and say, oh yeah, nice, and go down the aisle. I don't know, Mrs. and Mrs. And within a month, maybe less than that, maybe a year, you hear, what happened? Your periods irregular, you're cramping more, you're having all these things. I didn't buy that, I didn't come here for that. Because see, my whole mindset is that very lustrous kind of thought. I would get married with a great wife and we could have great sex and we're going to do it right. So now you have to know how to have the sex. You have to know when to have the sex. You have to know why you have to have the sex. Because she has an ailment. And so I think it's a very important factor to bring this to the fore today, understanding the masculinity of men in that place of anxiety and excruciating social injustices that comes to me, because you are going to be looking at me now, hey, what's going on? What's going on? Yes, you see, I don't see that one. You ain't got nothing. What you can't get nothing happening. Where the child? So we have to really look at the the social cycle. That's where I think the issue is more too, because we could maybe hand ourselves. But if I do want to handle myself with this woman, I'm thinking, how do I interpret that in a public space?
Yeah. I see that. Thank you, Dr. Niles. I see that Mr. John has joined us. Good night, Mr. John, and welcome to Spotlight Endometriosis.
Hi, good night, good night.
Good night, good night. And as I mentioned before, everyone who's viewing, Mr. John would be bringing us his experience. So, Mr. John, we were just chatting a little about issues with the male perspective. Mr. Leach, Jason, would have just spoken about, some issues where the male is concerned and what he has been studying, and the same thing Dr. Niles has just done. What I want to come straight at you with right away, and Dr. Niles and Jason, I want you to feel free to interject with your comments or your take on whatever is Mr. John would be saying at the time, right? Because we want it to be conversational. All right. So, Mr. John, we want to ask you right away for you to take us through your journey with endometriosis with your girlfriend. What were your, initial thoughts, everything that you would have experienced from the initial stages of detecting that there might be a problem to where you are today.
Hi, good evening again to the panel. So I just got the ending of the speech, the conversation.
My name is Kenneth.
Yes, Mr. Kenneth. Yeah.
No, not Mr. Kenneth, just Kenneth.
Oh, no, Mr. I was brought up with respect now, so yeah. For me personally, right? So it was something new to me, and being in a relationship with someone that you really care for, and as you said, when it came to the intimacy, it was like I was asking like, what's the problem? If I was doing something wrong and stuff like that, and then it's something foreign. As a man, we have to be considerate. A lot of men don't consider their other half to that extent, in the sense of their personal pain, something that inside we don't know what's going on. But you look at the person outside and saying, well, nothing wrong with you. How come? Why you acting this way? Why it is you're shunning me and these type of things now? For me personally, it had to be, it's part of being able to hear what? I need to understand more of what's going on here. I need to understand what's going on here. And it was a journey that you have to be there with that person. Otherwise, I'm being honest, it's a man not going through that. It's like, yeah, I'm not going through that. That is what part of our society is right now. And there's a lot of things to take into, you had to add a lot of things into that. But for me, I had to be there in the sense of, here what's going on. We have a problem. We found out what the problem was. It was painful for me personally, because when a man into his feelings, a man men have feelings too. A lot of people don't know that. They have feelings too. We're acting like if a fella not supposed to cry or them kind of thing now. So I kind of, to extent, I was feeling kind of like, why, what is this, why?
May I ask you, how long have you been interacting? How long have you been around with the endometriosis?
Well,
how many years?
Me and my girlfriend together over 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah, over 10 years. It was a journey from losing a child. It's like, what is this way? And it's part of it for me personally. Part of the problem too is, if I didn't experience it for myself, the information not really out there. You don't hear about endometriosis in the public like
Yes.
other things. You don't hear
Yes.
about it. Do not hear about it. The information, you don't see it out there. So it's like something new. And as I said, you don't hear people talking about it like what we are doing right now. It is not. It is not public knowledge. Honestly, it isn't. And I don't know if part of the problem is the woman or the government not putting out in more, because this real serious. When you look at, for me, when I got the explanation of what this is like, and then to hear the pain described and seeing my girlfriend going through these ordeals, it is something different. You hearing something like growing over the ovaries and squeezing here. It's like, yo, bro, I don't even want to feel that pain. I don't want to feel that pain. That's hearing what it is and seeing what it does, and the outcome, like I said, losing a child is like this. It is not easy. It is not nice. You really need people to support you and be there with you in during those times.
Kendell, let me interrupt you.
Yes.
Kendell, could you explain what that pain is? How the feeling is? Could you put some words to that? Did you feel upset, vomiting, crazy?
Yes. I was.
Tell us.
I was upset. I felt I was frustrated. Sexually frustrated too, because it's like, it wasn't nice. It is not nice. From again, as I said, and when I mentioned men going through their emotional phases as well, you need to have people there to support us as well, because you being there for other people and nobody there for you, like you, all right, and this is another thing that, as I said, this is your male perspective. Going out and going out there, you're going out and socialize, and knowing, take for instance, like the time here of my passing of my unborn. You're going out into the public and you're mingling amongst people. Internally, you're not like you carrying a burden, boy, and you're just trying to put on a smile, and you're not really going to tell. I'm not going to tell everybody that. I'm not personally going to tell everybody that. So you kind of internalize it, which isn't nice. And yeah, again, a bit what I would say, and people won't understand. For me personally, having an understanding of situations like that, because if you don't have any kind of experience, other people would be able to kind of take it on differently now. Again, so I was able to, like, I understood the situation. Still, it wasn't that much of a, it was a weight, I could say, as a weight. So I again, you have people around you who kind of just console you a kind of way, and going through the phase of understanding what it was, we got more knowledge on the sense of, going on, this is what we need to do. And for me, again, as a man, hearing your girlfriend had to go under the blade and these things, it was.
Let me ask something here, because I know of men who walked away in a situation like this, walked away because from what you're explaining, it was too much for them. And again, we go back to the point of society, giving men, I always find that men have great responsibility in our society, a lot. There's a lot for a man to bear, because he has to take care of himself and the whole world. Yeah. And I know men who walked away from this situation. And I want to ask you, I know it is quite intimate, but we're being intimate here. If it's something that you don't want to respond to, I will respect that. Yeah. But have you ever had those thoughts of thinking that, listen, I don't want to have to deal with this, to walk away from this, even if it's for 2 seconds?
Honestly, the thought would pass your mind. Again, being honest, it would. Because again, they said the devil find works for idle hands now, that kind of way. So that window of opportunity that he gets to interject his work, it's going to happen. So that's being honest. But I still with us, so hard luck.
You overcame it.
Yeah, hard luck.
You overcame it.
Yes, but as you said,
Jason, yeah.
No. I'll just let Kendell finish his thought and then I'll come in after.
Yes.
Yeah, but as you said, some men would have walked away, and you really need to. It's really a battle. Honestly, it is a battle. No doubt about that.
Okay. So first, let me say thanks for being very candid. Part of the discussion that has come up recently is how men handle miscarriages, because I guess a lot of people feel that men are not affected by miscarriages. But it is really that whole process, because you're planning your life for whether this is a boy, girl, you're planning your life around this child. So I have 2 kind of follow-up questions. One, well, let me make it 3. So at what point in time in the relationship did your girlfriend get the diagnosis? So that's question 1. Because you said that you all have been together for 10 years. 2, did you feel any guilt? Just along the line, with anything that she was going through, like did you feel any guilt? And 3rd is, have you considered children again?
All right. The first question was that was early in the relationship, and that I would say early in the first quarter of the relationship. It's like we together like probably 3 years, 4 years. So that this would make it even for me, it make it easier in the sense of being able to continue on that path with her. I believe if it was like 2 months in, it could have been a different story, because you want to know, like, yo, what's he saying? Just so already, in the sense of what's the second question?
If you've carried any guilt from her condition and your own interaction, has it caused you to feel any guilt at all?
No, no guilt. And what I had to understand was she's going through something, and knowing myself, I wanted to be there with her throughout the entire ordeal. I wanted to be there with her. It is something that, and then again, I already had a son. You know, I already had a son. For her, this was a new beginning. There was a chance for her to be able to experience that, and everything that's happening, God timing. One thing I always say, nothing happens before its time, but we have to be able to be aware and understand. We have to understand our being, our part, right? In the sense of, we are going through a journey in life. Things will happen throughout that life. We might want things before our time, but once we understand what we are dealing with, and we get people to help us make those choices, it has been easier, knowing that it will come in God's timing. I will not forget that part. Without God, I believe that, you know, he have his part to play as well. And we after the first time
Miscarriage.
the first miscarriage, yes. You know, you keep on trying. We kept on trying. We honestly did keep on trying. And but what I didn't do was try to force her. I did not try to force her, or put myself and make her feel like, you know what, you are at fault. And people, mind you, people, let's do this. Funny enough, right? I'll just put some up, like a pin on that. This extent, when people don't understand a person's condition, we tend to make joke of it, because society saying you and it's like that. Like, in my mind, I'd be like, people don't understand what's going on out here. Some women just in a position they cannot medically they cannot do it. All right.
I want you to stick up in there with that, because I remember in Dr. Niles' statements just now, he was mentioning, how society puts these labels on men that, you don't have a child. What kind of man are you?
Mm-hmm.
You with this girl so long, no children, but what's going on? And you're saying you had a miscarriage and so on, and you're also now saying that people, the Trinidadian society, be making joke out of serious thing, right?
Yes.
My question to you is, I mean, I know you just said that you had a son prior, but now you're starting a new family with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know how that made you feel. Did it make you feel less than a man to go out there and tell your friends, listen, I'm with this girl so long and there's no child? Especially in the entertainment industry, we know how men could get. Mm-hmm. And so I want to know if there was that feeling for you, either before, during, or after finding out what was the condition. Were you feeling, for want of a better expression, less than a man, that you were unable? Were you thinking that you were the one that was unable to give her that child?
it would
Did
be,
did it emasculate you in some form or the other?
the question, it did came up. That was part of the because the doctors would have said, here we're on. This is either or. It could be one, the female, it could be herself, all these things now. And it did came up. I was like, nah. I taking too much good care of myself, boy. Honestly, no, I didn't. That is one thought I didn't entertain at all.
Right. Good.
But it didn't make me feel lesser of a man.
Right.
As again, some people might have had different experiences in the sense of, if it is, I didn't have my boy, then it could have really been a different situation. But again, this is my experience, and what made it easier is because I already have had my first boy.
That's what I was not gonna ask.
Yeah, that made it easier. Honestly, it made it easier. But it didn't make it easier for her because, I was mindful, and that is me. That is just me, and I think that is some main problem. They do not consider their other. Like, I wonder where, I wonder how you feeling knowing that, with this guy for so much years. And that thought came to my mind. She has been with you for so long, and you cannot, make her a mother now, boy, because, Mother's Day would have come up, and
yes.
Yeah, I thought about all these things. Mother's Day would have come up, and knowing that you're with this person, you can't tell her, well, happy, you don't want to say happy stepmother's day. Yeah, you understand? Yeah.
Dr. Niles.
I was just wondering, in terms of when Kendell says that he had a child already. So therefore, is it truly that I am suffering from no child, or am I just being there saying, okay, darling, when you get yours, well, fine. So I'm using this as a backdrop in terms of the whole psychosocial issue, because I'm realizing too that even though that he may have had a child, or rather he has one, is it really the issue of me being a daddy already, or is it the issue of me being committed to you? Because there is the social impact that can cause him still to go out and find another woman to bear a seed for him. I am hearing him saying, yes, I'm able to commit to 9 years plus to a relationship that does not seem to bear fruit. So therefore, there's quite an important factor here of how I reorient my whole perspective of an expectation of what family life is. How do I reckon with this present context of family life as what I came into? I remember a couple that I had done an engagement with before. He got engaged and they were planning a wedding. I think they got engaged in August, and the wedding was supposed to be in December. By November, she turned up with a heart condition. There was no wedding in December. He broke the engagement off. He was not ready to handle a heart case for the future, and so he broke it off. So again, because there's that context of what kind of family I would have. Am I going to ever have a child? Because to get married with a person, the doctor said already, please, no children. Even though some women have gone on and have children even with a heart condition. But again, some men are really fearful in working out a future, because do remember, when we get married, there are spoken plans, there are unspoken plans. So one of those plans that we do not speak about that is real is I want to have a family. Yeah. The woman might say, I don't know if I want one because of the career consciousness, but the man, career or no career, he wants to prove himself that he can have a child. And so that it is important for us to help men to find a value in their future outside of just wanting a child, but the value of really having relationships and understanding the compatibility issues, that communication issues, the building of a society. When Jason had mentioned about the other factors about kidney failures and impotency and etc., diabetes, all those miscarriage things, those are real issues that we do not sit down to plan. Those are real issues that we don't even want to talk about. The courtship is mushy. You plan a wedding, or you decide to come and live with me, and then we get onto something. but nobody's talking about any infractions of health. They might talk about infractions of money, so get a job, but how do I say, go get a womb? Where can you move out? You don't buy wombs in the drugstore. You don't have womb transplant. Either where do I get new ovaries from? Where do I get a fallopian tube? We have to learn that there are certain things about our anatomy that we cannot exchange or we cannot duplicate in any form. And those are the psychologies that we have to look at. How do I become content within this frame of pain, this frame of disillusion, this frame of irregularities? And one more thing before I end here. So this whole context of preservation, how do I preserve the union? How is Kendell preserving this union with all these things? How do I get to continue daily, Monday to Friday, January to December? How do we still live on a day-to-day basis, having to work these issues? And I think that preservation is an important factor.
But it's very good that you would have said all of that, Dr. Niles, because in the whole scheme of things, endometriosis does not only present the issue of infertility, because there are many women with endometriosis who do have children, right? And it will continue to be so. We also have to look at, as you're saying, that broader issue of how do you continue with this person who is experiencing this amount of excruciating pain every month, sometimes for half, 3/4 of the month. You are unable to engage in life activities, mood swings, and all these different things that happens with an endo patient. So the problem with having a child, that comes up, yes, but it is not the case for every endo patient. But every endo patient would have that issue of pain, of mental problems, all these different things. So I want to zero in and focus there now on how you, Kendell, were able to maneuver all these experiences, these mood swings, the not being able to do all the things that a couple will do regularly with your girlfriend. Jason, I want you to come in and tell me, what is your experience with the men that you have interacted with at that level, having to deal with not endometriosis, but with mental health and their wife, their girlfriend, and so on. And Dr. Niles, you can cover it all for me with your expertise in that area as well. So Kendell, can you, share with us, what was that whole mental experience with your girlfriend, that not being able to do everything that you wanted to do all the time, the pain, the crying, the I don't want to do this, I can't do this. How did you deal with that?
Lex, that was a trip. That was a roller coaster ride for me. But to deal with it, it had times that you were just I think you really need to pray and ask for some guidance, honestly, some kind of spiritual, and just have something to just. You really need to have faith into something. Yeah. You think a lot about the other person. You think about a lot about the pain that they are going through. I really tried in the sense of thinking about it. How would you feel? How would you feel knowing that you're really trying something with a person and you're going through a pain, you are experiencing this, and that person gave up on you?
Mm.
I personally wouldn't have liked that. Yeah, I wouldn't have liked it for myself. So I was like mindful of those things, And it wasn't easy, honestly, it wasn't. And the thing with Renee as well, she really did not give up on me. I know she was like, she would have told me the pain that she is feeling. So we kind of understood and made me understood this is what is this is what we're dealing with.
Did you have peer pressure from your partners about coming
No.
what they're doing? No.
No.
You were strong against that.
Yeah, that wasn't ever an issue with me. I knew what I stood for. I knew where I stood. I knew what my role was, in the sense of being able to be there and console her when I could, and not pressure her as you said before, pressuring her in the times that like you're looking for, you're in your mood now, boy, and you're feeling felt to nibble and a nibble. So yeah, it just let that time pass.
You could be
That time-
innovative. Was you innovative?
Oh, of course.
I mean, there are other ways,
Yeah, there is, yeah,
there are other ways
yeah.
in terms of sexual and
Yeah.
romantic
There is,
activity.
yeah.
I hope
Dr.
you have
Niles,
been
you care to
innovative.
share? You care to share?
Well, there
No.
are several ways. I mean, people have had to do oral sex. One has to have to just do fondling. There are other maybe a matter of just satisfying each other and keeping that warmth.
Right.
Of course, there's also the manipulation of how he can find out at what doesn't have to be when he is horny. He could ask her when she's horny and help her, because there are certain times when maybe she is more relaxed and ready for intercourse than he will be. But he has to remember that she is working with that pain disruptive program.
Yes.
So you have to be sensitive to work that out. Other means, I would not suggest using toys, because those may be a little too rigid and sort of in terms of the touch. But I think when you have your own hands with your own that emotion, which will give her that passion for that release, I think it is important not to fear what I can do outside of the missionary pose. I have to work that out in order to function. I don't know if my wife had endometriosis, but she used to have this lining problem. The lining of the uterus would be at some months, and these lumps come. We never really, it may have been, but I remember having to work patiently until this thing extended from 5 days to 6 days. It's like, and then one day it stopped. But let's say one day, a period over a year, it stopped. But you have to learn methodologies in terms of keeping that warmth. And I want to commend Kendell, the fact that I don't want to just say that you're stuck with it. I think I want to commend you in wanting to support and to carry the whole thing forward. I think that is important.
Okay. Jason, you care to share your perspective with the men you have interacted with?
Sure. But first, I wanted to say that, Kendell clearly loves this woman, because
He does.
yes, because I think in the cut and thrust of normal relationships, there are things that people experience that will cause them to leave, that don't involve some of these. So just, Kendell, I just wanted to say that clearly this is coming through. And I wanted to say that as well, because there's a particular narrative that is perpetrated that, men are somehow more fickle and don't have staying power. And, if women experience or not women, if life throws them some adversity, they are quick to run. Clearly, this is not the case. So I could tell you what some of the people that I've talked to have experienced. But I think I guess more than that, I kind of want to ask you, Kendell. It's like a two-part question in terms of support. What kind of support does your girlfriend require from you? And then what kind of support do you require, not necessarily from your girlfriend, but otherwise? Because I just feel like, this is a major load that you're carrying. So I don't know what your outlets are. And so how it is you find peace and find ways to just detox and make sure that your own mental health doesn't spiral while it is you're dealing with all of this.
Jason, he wheels.
Well, I know. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. My mental escape, my part of my escape would have been music. Definitely. When I'm into music as well. So that was, what going on home. And then when you go out, you leave home and you enter into that is a different life on its own, So it was just an escape. But then again, you come back to reality. You have to come back to reality. I just honestly, I say what I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up on this. I made up my mind. I started, and I'm not going to stop. Somebody, and that somebody had to be the person who responsible for all of us. To change my mind. And that is basically where I put myself at. I have my elder son, and I think about him as well. And you part of it is you don't want him seeing, his dad starting something. My father, boy, he's seen that, and it passes on to him. It passes on to him that he see his dad being with somebody, shows him how to be able to treat a woman, I should say.
Kendell, I have a question. Are you finished
Sorry.
with Jason's question?
Yeah.
I just want to ask a question. How do you treat with her social life? Maybe also occupational. There's something we call occupational selection in terms of our group. The work she does, is it accommodating the pain? Her social life, how does she want to go out? Is she free? How do you support that kind of interaction?
But she would she likes to used to, we can't do it again. We like to go out, cinema, stuff like that. And yeah, so that part would help in we doing things like couples will do. We doing things like couples will do. Is life still have to go on? So it wasn't a problem there.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to, and I guess it's a pet peeve of mine, but I want to throw it out here. The fact that people have a way of asking when you're going and get some children, right? And I know it's a very Caribbean thing to do. And I generally like to advocate that people mind their business because you don't know. I mean, it may very well be that somebody doesn't want to have children. They just don't want to have children. But on the other end of it, it may be that somebody is having a real challenge and continually having to find ways around that question, both for the man and the woman, creates a lot of problems. And Kendell is very open. We're talking about this here. But you can go into a space and the conversations quickly devolve. So after soldiers in swimming, and I mean, it ain't call for all of that. You know what I mean? It ain't call for all of that. Let us leave people alone. If it is they have children, we wish them the best. We want them to have healthy pregnancies and have healthy children. But if you don't see somebody with a child, mind your business. That's you just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
Could I beg to disagree? I'm not begging. I have a contrary presentation for that. You see, Jason and Kendell, I think we talk about education, and this is part where I think we need to see that we can be educated, because if we don't ask and we say, okay, we go about with, we have a judgment, or we feel that, hey, we go with our own perspectives, so that I think it's to really be on the onus of the participant or the family who's having trouble to be strong enough to say, hey, I am suffering from a particular ailment that we can talk about. It is something uncommon, but suppose that person having a problem too. And there is also an association, Trinidad and Tobago Endometriosis Association. They can also help you. So I think on one hand, you want them to mind your business, but on the other hand, how would we educate Mr. Public and get people to understand that life does have infractions, life does have these issues. And so it is important for you to know, can I support you? I have friends around me, as I said in the last show, there's a lady from my church who had endometriosis. And to get her to talk about it, it was like, hey, no, but when she started to share, oh, I have it too. I have it too. It was when I told her, would you please answer the question? Would you please tell them why you don't have no children? And so sometimes I think we might be suspicious of the facetiousness or the mischief, but I think above that, we can carry the conversations very lively, very interactively, and giving some knowledge to the public. And I think, but on the other hand, women would have to, somebody said, to develop that kind of confidence, because we have not been so taught. Grind say, I agree with Jason. Grind tell you, shut him out, mind your business. But on the other hand, I think we need to help our women folk to really adapt that strength to share. You may not have to share everything, but I said it's an association. But I think that's how we got. Men have the same thing with their own issues of diabetes and impotency, and everybody they don't know, they might have prostate cancer, or they might have other ailments. And be quiet, like the podcast that Jason has. When would a man say, okay, I had, my wife had 2 miscarriages. I worked with a guy whose wife had 4 miscarriages before the fifth child was born. And it was not until we started to talk and I brought some other men in, and he realized that he was not the only one. So there was that support factor. So I was encouraging from more than a podcast context, but from a communicative context, if we can go beyond the mind your business thing and have the strength. I'm not saying go and showcase it, but be sensitive to when we need to really share these factors.
I think there is need, Dr. Niles, rightfully so. There is need for education at all levels, but I also think that there's still some level of merit in what Jason has said. So both of you, I think there's merit on both perspectives.
Oh, yeah. Of course there's merit.
So but gentlemen, we need to take a short break, a 3-minute break. I want to remind the audience to please place your questions in the chat, because when we come back, we are going to be fielding questions for the 3 gentlemen on our panel. So we are going to take a short break at this time, and we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back from our 3-minute break. Okay, so in this segment, we are going to field questions from the audience who would want to pose questions to Jason, to Dr. Niles, and even to Mr. John. So to take us through this segment, we are going to bring on President, Miss Ambah Grant. I'm seeing that she's here already. Hi, Ambie.
Hey, welcome again. Thank you all. I must say, I'm liking the conversations that I'm hearing. I'm stoked to ask some questions of Dr. Niles, Jason. Do I say Mr. John or do I say Kendell? Do I say Mr. Swanky? What do I say?
No, Kendell.
Kendell.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's start with the first question. What would you advise, this is for any one of the gentlemen that are on the chat right now, what would you advise men in a relationship and end a relationship to do when it comes to supporting their girlfriends/wives? Anyone can take that question. Kendell can talk from experience. Jason. What's that, Jason?
So I was going to leave it to Kendell. He's the expert. So I could speak generally after.
Okay, so Kendell, what would you advise?
I believe everybody will be able to give their take from their angle. Their angle. That's how I look at it. For me, men, you need to you have to ask yourself, do I really love that person? Do I really love this person? Because again, if it is that you just like somebody, if you just like somebody, they're not going to go through this. I think that is long and short. If you just like a person, you're not going to go through this. If you love a person, you will be there. You will be there with them through thick and thin. And that is just, to me.
And then I think the person wants some specifics, because for the first half of the program, you already answered the general. We know you're there, yeah. But I think the person wants some specifics, like, you know, a rose or something.
It is not. You I don't know now. I don't know how to answer that.
Hold a hand, squeeze it, rub your head, rub your belly.
No. They don't want
my belly,
that.
rub my back.
No, they don't want that. I believe that woman at that point of time, you don't want. You have to know how to be able to respect that space and that moment right there. See, during that time, I don't want it to touch me. And it's not like I don't want it to touch me, as in I don't want it to ever touch me. I don't want it to touch me right now. You have to respect that person. If you don't understand, men don't understand that here we're going on. This is what it is right now. You have to know how to work around that during that moment. That is just me.
So I kind of want to echo what Kendell says. I think a big thing that men can do is to really get themselves informed. You know, I think it's been my own observation that a lot of people feel they know what they're talking about, but they don't actually know what it is they're talking about. So a big part of it is really getting yourself informed from official sources, definitely, but also being informed by your partner. Like, this is what it is, you know, this is how I feel, this is what's, you know, and a big distinction that I have learned recently is, you know, making the difference between what it is you know and what it is you feel. And I think in understanding, in knowing what is happening, knowing some of the physical manifestations that you mightn't be able to feel the actual pain, but you can understand and empathize. All right, this is what this is what my partner is going through at this point in time. So I think a big part of it in terms of support would be informing yourself as a man that this is what is happening, and these are the potential side effects. Of course, talk to your partner. Every side effect is not the one that your partner is going to be dealing with. And from there, you build from there. And treat knowledge as an ongoing process as well.
Thank you, Jason. Dr. Niles, what would you tell a long-standing endo husband? There's some of us here whose partner, so Kendell, has been for over 10 years. For my husband, it's over 15, almost 20 years. What do you advise a long-standing endo partner to do? Because the same way we as endo patients, we are tired, they too will get tired on this journey. What would you advise?
Well, let me piggyback from Jason. Keep learning. And the learning here is not just about endo. The learning here is about that communicating. How do I build the relationship? How do I find means of making this relationship existent and real? Because without endo, we could also crash. We don't have any, and yet we have people divorcing and separating for several reasons, whether it's money, interest, education, etc. So therefore, with endo, it's no different as if one has another issue of no job or no money, or you have different interests. This is another situation that has to be valued in terms of how we are working together. So it's important for the husband to be patient, firstly with himself, with himself, not with the lady, with yourself, so that you will know how to work together in emoting, in communicating, because your language could change in terms of you becoming irritable, becoming frustrated, so therefore you're snarling, you're snapping, or rather you could be silent. And maybe also you might clamp down, because every time you ask for something, especially maybe intimacy, or even to get a meal, you might hear, I'm exhausted, oh, I can't. How often am I going to listen to this? I can't. So you have to learn that, how can I therefore fit? Therefore, do I have to learn to cook? Do I have to learn to be much more involved in caring for the home, kind of doing things, sweeping, or should I now hire a housekeeper to support? So the whole fact of how I can support and be ready to make sure that my wife and I are still, or my mate and I are still one. We are to maintain that focus more than trying to satisfy me. So once I am satisfied and content with me, once I understand me, I can therefore understand and appreciate you. But I have to first be content in terms of how I work out the solutions, and then I could transfer that to my partner and say, okay, let's do this together. I hear you. You could lie down. I'm going to cook. We're going to take a holiday. Just rest. I'm going with you to the doctor. Those are friends. But it's important for, and one more factor here that I want to suggest to the organization, to have a meeting where you invite employers to come in and just talk about these female things, because some employers are very, very irresponsible and are not to how they treat females. So therefore, when that woman comes home from work, again, that frustration of how she had to handle the job, she couldn't file, she took her time with the computer, her eyes got blurry, and the boss says, I want that file, I want that thing, and your friends. So there's also a need for when you come home, how to sit with your wife and hear her stories, how to sit with your wife and help work out that day. Suggest how you can handle your job. Suggest what you can do outside of that. Maybe change your job, so that when we talk about occupational selection, it's important to work out those important factors, because money is something, I don't want to be not working. To put the, how we feel that you're putting the weight on your husband, he alone working, how you can pay the bills. So those are also factors in how he can help in terms of maintaining that leverage and that commitment to the spouse or the mate.
Thank you, Dr. Niles. All right, Kendell, this is a question for you. How do you feel about sharing your story with your colleagues, given the world that you're in, the entertainment world that you're in? Does your masculinity ever come into question if you do share your story? And do you find yourself defending her? Have you ever been placed in that situation?
How would I feel sharing my story to the Well, on work, the music was the music. My entertainment life is not my 7 to 4. All right, that was just on the night you do that. That is for that part. When it came to, if I need to share that story, I will. On work, where my 7 to 4, it's Monday to Friday. It had co-workers that I had to, and as Mr. Kenneth had mentioned, when it comes to I'll just interject in that part as well. My supervisor, when I had to go to the doctor with my girlfriend, you either take a sick leave or you had days that I did that, he didn't have a problem. So I had to remind him, here going on, I had to go by the doctor today, prior to that. And then if you're like for the month or say for the year, you use up too much of that, they will have a problem. But I have to say, I had a supervisor who was understanding, and co-workers, it had like about 2 of them. I would have told, because you're working with people and they didn't see you one day, and they ain't seen some days, they're like, what going on? What's your problem? And I didn't, it didn't make any sense of lying. So you just tell them you're going on. This is what going on. It had, as I said, it had 2 workers that I always would tell, and I must mention my supervisor. If I need to share the story to the music part and in the entertainment, I will. Do I feel like I am defending her? Do I ever had to defend her? No. I part of what Jason had mentioned, mind your business. It have people that you just I do not need to tell you anything. You just stay in the loop, leave them right there. Because part of the problem is public knowledge is needed. A lot of people still to this day make fun of people who are just in a situation, and you tell them a problem, and they're going and run out the road, and they have something to gossip about and make a laugh and kia. That is a problem. And that is a problem that we have, that we would not, you would prefer not to tell a person something, keep it in your circle, and for the rest of them, leave them there until it happens to them. Then it'll be like, there's my problem, but when we was trying to tell you about our situation, you take it as a joke and you run with it. Now watch, you're in the seat, you're in the hot seat now. I think we really need to have more public knowledge on matters like this.
Thank you, Kendell. And I want to piggyback on that, where Dr. Niles and yourself spoke about the employees. This is something that the association is working on. One of the things we plan to do, to speak or to have some sessions with the Employees Association, to let them know that this is a real disease, because unfortunately not everybody understands or want to understand, and it does affect productivity in the office. It really does, So thank you for that, Jason. So Dr. Niles, when Jason made the comment to mind your business, quite a few women in the chat said, yes, Jason, mind your business. I wanted to say hashtag mind your business. And you stated that sometimes it's good to share the story, because then somebody else will say, hey, I have the same issue. However, what I want to ask, and this is something personal as well, many times persons in the church circles, they talk about, it's sin. If you don't have any children, there's some sin in your life, which is why you have no children. And even if you share with them, well, this is my diagnosis, and either I can't or it will be difficult for me to have children, you still get the insensitive comments. You pray it away. God will bless you. Do some introspection. There must be sin somewhere in your life. And when you think you can get support from your church family, you realize that support is lacking, if at all there. How do you advise a woman in a church setting, in any other religious institution? How do you advise them to deal with that?
I'm not too sure I'm good for this answer, this question. Okay, well, what I did, and I did it, and I have some of my members here. I asked them, all of you who are suffering, and I was surprised. I felt that directed to ask that question, and I was quite surprised. I thought I may have only gotten one. And then I saw people, women was just getting up. I'm like, oh my gosh, there were about 8 women or more. Just, and I said, So I said to the congregation, do you realize that we have here women who have been silently in pain, not just physical pain, but social pain, emotional pain, coming here and wondering if they can share. And they come for prayer, pray for me, but they're not willing to say. And it was when I asked them to come forward and face the congregation, I said to them, let's learn from them. Let's begin to find out. Let's begin to support them. Not just saying, hey, something wrong with you. And I don't want anybody to say, again, have a child. Because there's some of them who have been pressured. And see, that's why I'm talking about the silence. Some of them were pressured because, hey, the culture is going so long. There's a guy here on the platform, 25 years married, and hey, stop pressuring people. And at one stage, you realize that somebody decided by faith. You know how we are. We get the faith thing. You go and you buy a garment, a chemise, or you might buy a vest, and say, I'll give you this in anticipation. And the person is saying, anticipate what, pay what shot, because I can't have any, and I don't know. But you have the person believe it. And I had to help people to help them to realize, hey, let's allow God to be God. So that it was again, as Jason was saying, and I have already adopted this, educate. I have been ridiculed for it also, Dr. Niles, you're bringing too much psychology into the church. But that's where we need it, I can pray, yes, but people need to learn how to relate to information. And so since then, the membership has been much more supportive. And the prayer is different now. It's not about, Lord, a bind and a loosen, or I cast out this infirmity. It's about, Lord, help us to bear. And I think we had 2 people who were warded at hospital almost at the same time. And then we realized, okay, hey, let's pray for life. Let's pray for purpose. What can these 2 people do more than just, may I use the word, suffer? And there's an encouragement to become more proactive, to get more creative in their jobs. And they're doing so much better now. So that what happened that Sunday morning is that psychological pressure of being alone, or as I wrote in the chat, being displaced, was taken away. So I belong to you with my endometriosis. I belong to you with my polycystic ovaries. Did I say it wrong? Polycystic ovaries. I feel free to say I feel free to say, I like your baby. Because I had one member who I didn't realize never came to church on Mother's Day for a long time. And that's the thing. It was like, where are you? Oh, I thought in one sense because of her own mother, but then I realized once, I said, no, it's because why am I coming to church to hear Happy Mother's Day? So I started to be careful, even with anniversaries and people who would have broken marriages or who never had an anniversary, they grew up with a single parent, and all of a sudden it's anniversary. I don't really know that. I had a single parent, So that we have to be very careful how we promote these celebrations and how we establish that. So again, I have been able, with the psychology, with the theology, to bring that back. And I think we have to have that sensitivity, that we have to work without differences. We have to learn to mention it. And when we talk about diversity and inclusion, we always feel it's gender. No, we are talking also about diversity and inclusion in terms of sicknesses, in terms of finances. Poverty is something that because I wrote down here some things about ability to go to the doctor. I mean, Jason, Kendell, sorry, has not mentioned that. But do I have the money to go to these doctor visits? And if I don't have the money, what's going to happen to my mate, my spouse? We can't afford it. It's a general hospital. Hey. But we have had our situation with those two illustrations we give you. We thank God that they were able to get appointments quickly and, and work it out. But there's some people who are on a waiting list, and you can't always go to the guys who are the gynecologists. So therefore, we also have to support that. Can I get some money for you? Can I bring food for you? And so then we started doing that. The church, the ladies, they will carry food, they will carry this. I'm supporting you here because we have to find that inclusion in terms of the context. And I think it's a very important factor to build that. Again, that's why I said to you, I like the socio-psycho rather than psychosocial. It really becomes more social in how you work. And I appreciate that pastoral context, and I'm glad to be able to offer that support.
All right, thank you, Dr. Niles. Now we have two questions that are similar. So I'm going to ask, what type of psychological issues do you think men will have knowing that their wife cannot bear children due to endo? And how can a wife or girlfriend help him not feel like it is his fault or that he's missing out on life? And the third part is, what resources do you suggest to help my husband more when dealing with it? Would you like me to repeat it?
No.
No, okay. Jason, you can jump in here as well.
Jason, go ahead. Go ahead, Jason.
Sure. I firmly believe that marriage is a grown person's decision. Big people should get married. And I say that in the context of everybody has something that they're dealing with. My thing mightn't be your thing, but we all have something that we're dealing with, right? So if adults get married, then adults should be able to say, listen, this is what we're dealing with. So it should be less of a convincing and more of a discussion. I don't feel like you have to tell a big man, or you have to convince a big man about something that his wife is dealing with. The same way, if a man was to have, I don't know, get in an accident and suffer with ED, there is a clear cause, a clear correlation between what has happened and what he's dealing with now. So that's me. I just feel that is, I know it has to happen, but my personal feeling is that marriage is for adults. And so you have to have adult conversations in marriage. And I just want to make that distinction again between knowing and feeling. So once we're having the discussion, we're dealing with the knowledge part. So we know what we're talking about. We know why this is happening. We know why that is happening. So then we move to the feeling part. How does this make you feel? And again, those are adult discussions. Because, Kendell was very open. You see, sometimes, you're feeling, but your girlfriend is dealing with something at this point in time. So you have to put that on pause. So it doesn't mean that your feelings get thrown out of the window, but there must be a space that we can talk about our feelings. And as I get older, I am a very, very, very big advocate of therapy. Very, very big advocate. That people go and talk to a professional. And no offense, Dr. Niles, go and talk to a professional, not a pastor. Now, I know you tick both boxes, but I'm just saying, there are people who substitute a professional for the pastor. And but anyhow, I'm just saying that, go and talk to a professional and work through these things. That's how I think, And of course, the third part of the question in terms of the resources, if we are dealing with this, then we can find the resources, whether through internet, going to conferences, There are things that we can do to educate ourselves about this issue?
Okay.
There are basically about three disorders that may occur. Of course, one will be depression, and they will be anxiety, mood disorder. But there's also going to be that may become an OCD because of the way you are constantly looking for, so that you create that kind of construct within the home. Everything you're trying to perfect, everything you're trying to make sure everything. So that's where the anxiety maybe comes in, because you want some patterns for the, you're cleaning here, you're going here, you're asking these questions every day. Excuse me, you're okay, we're going. So that on the other hand, you're trying to make sure everything is so perfect to make sure that the person can find healing. Let's go to the doctor then. So get up now, do something. So you could pressure your spouse because of that OCD. And of course, this could result in schizophrenia, where you become delusional. Usually begin to have these grander things of the if, the shoulda, coulda, woulda. I could see myself having a family, and you get to that point where you're so hurted inside. You starting to hallucinate about the voice of a child, the cry of a baby, and sometimes again, some husbands might find themselves wanting to buy a baby clothes, wanting to buy pants, wanting to buy some garment, or maybe make something in anticipation. So I'm making a crib, or I'm making a horse, or so there's that kind of mental disorder that can occur because of that pressure, and that's of course that comes out from the whole cultural context of it. Somebody asks if trauma fits in. I am saying, let's start with crisis, because it's like, yet I'm traumatized because of the crisis. The crisis is she cannot get pregnant. Now that cuts against my whole culture. I mean, my whole tradition. I mean, so that takes me into the trauma, where I could therefore, and maybe that's where depression will come from, into the post-traumatic stress disorder. That was where the issue of depression. Some people might even be bipolar, because there's that manic depressive. You're upset at one end, but you are sad at the other end. And so that you're fighting and quarreling and snarling at one end, but then you're down. So there are these issues that are real. And I know the depression is real among some men who are just, especially men who are a bit more on the quiet side. They're very reserved and very internalized. Silence is part of their MO. So therefore, that depression is they're sad. And the other thing too, Ambah, is that the anxiety for your wife, I think which also brings out the OCD, which helps you to want to do these things. And those are things that happen in my practice. As I said, I have to work, and I'm very careful, Jason, which hat I wear and how to wear the hat, because this chair is quite an old chair for me. But I have had to work with my men, the husbands of those women, and how to handle and chat with them and talk with them and help them to put things in perspective. One of the things that I can say I struggle with, or that is a struggle, is again that wanting to withdraw. The man sometimes wants to find a space to breathe. I don't know if Kendell can help me here, but it's like you're overwhelmed sometimes with seeing her in pain, seeing her in the agony. You're comforted, and the more you're comforted, it doesn't seem to work, So that in itself is a psychological depression. So I've had to help people into the space. So I've taken out, let's go for dinner, like with the husband, let's go for dinner. And I've consulted with the wife, I'm taking your husband, and she say yes. Or encourage them to play sports, go do basketball, go swim, go do something. Not go lime, because lime is, but find a group where you can find, because I think they also need to breathe. So that question from Ambisha is that it does have trauma, but I think it starts off with the crisis where that hits you and you're in shock when you see that thing written there, can't happen. You know?
Mm-hmm. Now, there's a comment on the Facebook, and this is in relation to what Kendell would have stated, where, you know, he said he knows during that time, don't touch her or anything. This person wrote, drop off my drinks, foods, meds, and leave. Thanks. May I also add to that list a tub of Haagen-Dazs Belgian chocolate or with the salted almonds, please and thanks. Yes, and that is how sometimes we feel. So I see Kendell nodding and says he knows it well.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another question. There are two more questions before we round it, before we go through with our questions and answers. If you meet someone for the first time and you think there's a future in this, do you suggest that you reveal and disclose your endometriosis early in the game? Or do you wait for the person to fall in love and then tell them, well, this is what I have.
Look to you,
and it may affect. Yes, Dr. Niles, take it away.
No. I watched Jason for the first time for the night, Jason pulled the bed.
So, Jason, let's hear your answer.
So let me just put the caveat. I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm speaking for me here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the first thing is, where have we determined that we headed somewhere? Like, this is the thing. Because if we just talking that thing, and there's interest, but we haven't yet identified that this is going somewhere, I don't see that it may need to come up in a space like that. But at the point where, you know, things start to get serious, I feel like it's important to disclose. The same way, and I mean, especially if it is the intent to, you know, part of your relationship is sexual, if that's an expectation in your relationship, the way that you approach relationships. I think that, let's say the situation was reversed, that I had erectile dysfunction. That is something that you'd probably want to disclose before it gets to a place where you have to be asking, so what's happening here? So I think it's early. I mean, there's no marker, but I think you don't want to say too early, because it's not anybody's business too early. But at the point where you say, look, maybe because it may also factor in somebody's decision as to whether it is they want to continue with a relationship or not. So at that point, you know, you kind of say, look, this is what it is I'm dealing with. And then, so I don't have a timeline, but I have like a feeling where it is you feel like things start to get a little.
But yes, so you wait till I tell you I fall in love. You wait till I have all those emotions and now tell me this.
No, I believe you should say before you fall in love. I definitely believe.
But you mama guy me, man. You see me coming on to you. We going out, we holding hands, we do everything. And now because you're not gonna tell me this, Jason, you should tell me that up front.
No, I see it. I really want to put myself in a situation. If I have erectile dysfunction, when do I say that?
I mean, we've had conversations. Look, hold on. You're asking me if I want to have children. Yeah, I tell you I like to have children. How are getting children?
It's always, man. It's always. That's not the only way. It's always around that. But I imagine we go out the first time and say, look, what is you doing? Not let me go and buy some doubles. Let me get to it like, oh, I have erectile dysfunction. Like, it just is not one of them things that you just jump out at.
I can say, so that is why the other day when I start touching you say, no. You did no. You can't come out and tell me, but you act as if you want me, and you make me feel stupid. So what kind of man is that?
I will again, Dr. Niles, I do not speak for all men. I speak for Jason Leach. I think I don't think it's something you disclose initially, but there comes a point where it is you see things heading in a direction and you say to yourself, all right, cool. Maybe this is something I have to put out there. That is just for me.
I think from my little simulation, I think it goes both ways. You know, there's some women who say fine, who say, well, what? You hold this thing back from me. And I cannot say that it should be done upfront or immediately. What I would say is that when an opportunity arises for you to share out of a conversation, which is a natural propensity in terms of how you work, I think do not entertain the word secret, secret. Don't make it a secret. So that after a month, after whatever time, are you talking one day and the conversation comes up and you could just share it. I think it's going to be more meaningful in a context of a current flowing conversation than to be an adjunct thing where you can say, I have something to tell you. You know, I mean, what is this you have to tell me that you have your face, so I have something to tell you? And you had opportunity for. So I think we have to learn to work with that relationship and identify the closeness and the freedom with which we can work these things as we are entrained in our relationship.
And I want to state also something Jason said earlier, that a marriage is between adults. And at some point, you must have that conversation, because many times and Dr. Niles also alluded to it as well, we think about the wedding day, and we're not studying the long-term marriage or the long-term relationship. So we don't discuss the part about children. Can we have children? How many children do we want? You know, and Kendell, I hear your story that it's while you were with her, as I say, a quarter within your relationship is when the diagnosis came. And you already knew in the back of your head, you in this for the long haul, you know? So I'm gonna ask, this is the last question to tie it up. One, now Dr. Niles did answer it in the chat. I do not know if he has anything else to add to it. If a person states that the male perspective to endometriosis isn't necessary, doesn't make sense, what would you say to that person, or how would you describe that person? Dr. Niles said selfish. That's the word he used, right? Jason, how would you describe someone who says that? Getting to understand how the males feel about it. We don't need that. How would you describe that person?
Excuse me. I'm trying to be as concise as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Kendell said it, and I echo it. Men have feelings too, right? And that statement would be coming from a place that you feel like, as a man, because I'm not dealing with it physically, I should not have an opinion on it. But every woman is somebody's husband, somebody's sister, somebody's daughter. So the more men that know about it and the more men that are engaged in the discussion, the better it is for everybody. So if it is your daughter eventually comes and says, you know, this is what I'm dealing with, you have already been seasoned in the discussion.
Right.
Right? If your wife comes and says something, you know, if your brethren comes and says to you, hey, remember when you were telling me this thing about your girlfriend?
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriend now, you understand? So the more men that are involved, the better it is.
Thank you. Kendell, do you have anything to add or to wrap it up for us? What would you say to that person?
They need to wake up. That person's
okay.
Yeah, they definitely sleeping. You cannot and to say that or to even think that and we had to be real though, because a lot of people will share that same sentiment in the sense that, like, what is it? You know, like, you don't need to know and be like that, but you need to wake up. This is not back in prehistoric days. We are part. This is not me and he. This is us.
I would hate to think. I use the word hate strongly.
And that would just strong. Yes.
I am in a relationship with you, married or unmarried, in a relationship with you for a long run, and you have a secret that is permanent You don't want me involved in this thing. You want me to live my life. So that when you ask me a question, or I say to you, I cannot do something, I am just not to ask you why. And you are not going to tell me that you have a pain. And then when I say, let's have sex, you will tell me, not tonight, and give me an excuse rather than be open. So that is why it is a very selfish, it is almost, it's unthinkable, because you cannot be in a relationship, even as a mother, as a father, even if you're not married yet, your parents need to know. There is some part of the sociological component that identifies masculinity. So there must be a sharing. So that I think men need to talk. We have a voice, and as Kendell said, we do have emotion. And of course, you know what is the joke about this, Ambah? You're going to go to the male gynecologist and share.
That's right. That's right.
You're going to go there and share. Even if you want to have a private IVP, you're going to what? Do that by yourself? Where get this pulled from? A man. So therefore, men are going to always be involved. And I think you need to be honest that you cannot be bold and strong and woman to carry this ailment all by yourself. It's going to crumble you. Psychologically, it's going to crumble you. And you're not going to have a relationship, not even a marriage.
Agreed. And I thank you for that. So this comes to the end of our question and answer segment. And I must say I enjoyed it. And I want to endorse what was said by our three panelists, that men are as much involved in endometriosis as a woman. And while it is labeled a woman's disease, we don't live alone. We all have fathers, we have brothers, we have boyfriends, we have husbands, we have nephews, we have sons, and they need to know and understand. So yes, my son knows about my disease. So when or if he encounters it when he becomes older, he will say, yes, mommy, I heard about this, my mother has it, and he can be a support to this young lady. Right? So it is very important and imperative that we involve men in these discussions as we get the word out on what endometriosis is. So I want to thank you three men. I will hand you back over to Christy. I also would like to encourage our participants to fill out the chat, the link. I'm not sure if the link was dropped in the chat, but to fill out our survey. There it is, Bridget just put it. Fill out the questionnaire, let us know what you thought about this session and if it impacted your life. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ambah. And I guess that we would all appreciate that after tonight, the male perspective is absolutely necessary. We cannot exist in this world without each other. We can't, at no level. So the TTEA would like to thank you, Dr. Niles, for enlightening us with your expertise on the topic of mental health. Your knowledge and passion for what you do cannot be overlooked at all. To you, Mr. Leach, for your penetrating perspective on this topic. And we want to wish you all the best in your PhD thesis. So next time we meet, we'll probably be saying Dr. Leach.
I hope so.
I know so. And to you, Mr. John, for candidly sharing your experience with us tonight. We know that it can't be always an easy thing to talk of the things that you spoke of tonight, but rest assured that your story may have positively impacted someone in some way tonight, and we thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
We would also like to thank our viewing audience, for registering and taking time out to be with us this evening, and to the board and the executive members who always give up their best for every TTEA event. Remember to stay tuned to our social media pages for information on how and when to. So endometriosis mental health and relationships. That's happening next month in October. And don't forget to donate to the TTEA. Good night, everybody. God bless and thank you all so much.
Good night.
Okay, good.